Okay, so in this video we will do explicit intents part 2, which will basically just carry on from the application that we had in part 1. So in the first application, this one that we did now in part 1, you will see that we created two buttons. This just launches the activity and that one sends through data to the activity. So now we're going to do something totally different. We're going to add a third button. So let's add that button quickly. Add the third button, and that data or this button will launch a new activity, and then when that activity comes back it will play some data for us in this text view. So let's just add some margin there for the top. Let's make it 30 just to move it down a bit, and we're going to play some text in that one. So for the button we need to set the text. So let's go to the strings XML and we're going to say btn, let's say get data, all lowercase, and we're going to call get, let's say get data, and I'm going to save this one and close it down. And then for this button, double click and let's just go to btn send get data, btn get data. And then for this one we need an ID, so I'm going to say tv get data, or we can say maybe say tv results. Okay, so basically we're going to launch a new activity using this button, and then on that activity we're going to do something, get the data from there and display it here on this medium text. Okay, so at the right from the start we could just maybe set the text on that one as well. So let's just go back to strings XML and let's call it get data, and we can say something like results will be displayed here. Okay, save it and let's just put the text there. The very first time we run this application it's going to show us that one. So it's going to be get data, so it's going to show results will be displayed here, and maybe we just add a top margin of 10 there as well. Okay, so we're going to click on this button, going to launch a new activity, get back and show the results here. Okay, so in our main activity we need to create a method for this button. So we're going to say public void, let's say btn get data, view v in brackets again, and then let's connect that button to this method. So let's go back to this one. I'm going to close down data now because we're not going to use it now. So activity main, on that button, let's go to the method, to the onClick property and link the method. There's the onClick property, and we search for the method get data. Okay, so now get data has been connected to that button, and now when the guy clicks on the button we can launch a new activity. Okay, so how do we launch a new activity again? First thing first, we need a new activity. So I'm going to say new activity, empty activity, and I'm going to call this activity, let's call it results, or return results. Okay, and we say finish. So we've got a new activity called return results, and that's the one that we want to launch in order to get some data back. So how do we launch it? We're just basically going to say intent, like the ones at the top there, like we did that one, equals new intent. First argument is going to be the main activity dot this. Second argument will again be my whole package part, and then put a dot there, and we're going to go with return results. Let me just go to a new line there so that we can see, and remember to add the dot class. And now we can go and call start activity, but this one is going to work a bit different. So we're going to say start activity for result, and you can see that this one accepts an intent and it accepts a request code. So what we're going to do is to just start the activity with the intent and set the request code as 1. And I'll explain the request code now. Now, because we're starting this activity for a result, so it's going to go to that activity, get some sort of result, and come back to this activity. We need a method to, when the result comes back from that activity again to this one, we need to catch it somehow. So we're going to go to code and override implement methods, and you're going to search for the onActivity result method. So it's going to be onActivity result. You can see if you start typing onActivity, it goes to onActivity result. Just double click the method and it adds the method for you automatically. So you can see there, protected void onActivity result. It has a request code, a result code, and the intent of data. So basically what happens here is this one is a request code. The second argument there that you pass is the request code. And that will be the same request code that will be passed along here. So I could have different buttons that activate different activities, and I can differentiate between them by using this request code. So every one of them will come back to onActivity result, and we can test the request code to see if we are working with the correct one or catching the correct one. So before we carry on with this start activity for result, let's just go to that activity called return results. So at this stage, we've got an empty activity there for that new activity that we created. There's nothing on it. So for this one, let's change the relative layout to a linear layout again. And then just make sure the orientation property is there. And we're going to set it to vertical. Okay, so now we've got the vertical orientation linear layout. And now what we want to do here is to just ask the user to type something. So we're just going to add a plain text there. And then we're going to have one button there to submit it, and another button if the guy doesn't want to enter anything and he can cancel it. So for this one, for the edit text, let's add the margins on the left and the right. Make it 30. And for that button at the top, let's make it 20. Okay, so this button is going to be submitting it, and this one is going to be just cancelling. So let's go to our strings XML again. Set up the text for those two buttons. So we're going to have a button to submit it, the values. And it's only going to be called submit. Then we will also have a button to cancel. Okay, and then the last one that we can use there is the hint for that one. So let's just say hint. Let's use that same hint that we did on the previous one. Okay, or maybe not. Let's say hint name. So say hint name there, and we can ask the something's wrong there. Let's just redo it quickly. String btn, no, not btn, hint underscore name. And the name will be, or the hint will be, please enter name. Okay, so we can save, close the strings XML, and let's go back to our layout. So for that one, we need a hint property. So we're going to go down to the hint property, 3 dots, and then go to hint name. So we're going to ask the guy, please enter your name. And then on the new button there, the first one there, we're going to have btn submit. And the second one, we will have btn cancel. Okay, so we're going to have a submit button, a cancel button, and then let's just put the gravity property for that one, center horizontal. And now it looks good. So for this one, let's add an ID. So I'm going to say et, let's call it name again, or et return name. And then submit button and the cancel button, we're going to have methods for those two. So let's just quickly set them up in coding. So that one is called et return name. So in the code for that specific activity, we're going to say edit text and et return name. I like to call it the same name. So we're going to say et return name equals edit text, find the view by its ID, and then referring to that specific ID called ET_return_name. So that one is now set up. We've got a link to this one in coding. So we can just use the getText method on it to get whatever the user typed. And then the submit button and the cancel button. Let's do two methods there. So it's going to be public void btn submit with view v in brackets. If it's still in red, you didn't select it from the list, you can use Alt Enter to add the import. And then for the next one, public void btn cancel, view v again. And let's just quickly connect these two methods to those two buttons. So if I click on the submit button, I'm going to go down and search for onClick and use btn submit, and then go to cancel and choose btn cancel. Okay, so now it's been set up. For the return results, we've got both those two connected. So if the user clicks on this, the method will run. If it clicks on cancel, the other method will run, and we can get the data. Okay, so if the guy clicks on submit, we need to get the data from this specific edit text. So if he clicks on submit there, the first thing that we want to do is to get the name. So we're going to say ET_return_name dot getText dot toString to get the data, whatever the guy typed. And now we're going to do the following. So now we're going to go back to this onActivity result, because we started this activity for a specific result and the request code we passed along. So now when we get to this part, we need to go and set up an intent to pass through data again. So I'm going to say intent equals new intent. Let me just add that import, Alt Enter. And for that intent, we can just leave it blank because we're not launching a new activity. We're going to go back to the previous activity. So we're going to say intent.putExtra again. And the data that we're going to pass through is the guy's name. So let's call it first name. And then it's going to be the name that the guy typed in the edit text. So we're passing, that's the data that we want to send back to the previous activity. And now because we said that we need to set this one, start this activity for a specific result, we need to set a result this side. So we're going to say set result, and then you can see we need to indicate a result code there. So the result code will be result OK, everything went OK. And then the second argument will be to add the intent that we want to send through. So we want to send through this data that's part of this intent. So the result is OK, and we're going to pass through the intent. And then after that, we're just going to call finish. Now finish will basically just go to this activity and close it down, which means that we will be back at the main activity. So as soon as we call finish, the result has been set. It's going to go back to the main activity, into the onActivity result, passing through the request code as 1, the one that we placed in there, and the result code there will be the result code that you indicated there, which will be result OK. And then the intent, that data that will be passed through, will be this intent that you pass through. So again, in this onActivity result, we can use the intent to get the data as we did in the previous one. Okay, so if the guy clicks on cancel, then we can also do some stuff there. Okay, so what we can do when the guy clicks on cancel, we can just go and set the result, because we don't want to send through data then. Set the result as result cancelled. Okay, if he clicks on the cancel button, result cancelled, and we're not going to pass through any intent. So it's the same thing as that statement there, set result OK and passing through the intent, except this time we're not passing through any data, so we don't indicate the intent. And then again we can just say finish the activity. So okay, so the submit button will basically just create a new intent with the data that was typed in the edit text and set the result to OK, passing through the intent and finishing it up. Okay, so let's quickly go back to our main activity. So remember now what happened there. We said start activity for result, passing through the intent, which will activate return results, and there's a request code. So then it opens up this part. The user types something, he clicks on submit. We create a new intent, passing in the name that the guy typed, and we reset the result to OK. That's the result code, and then that's the intent. So when it goes back to the main activity, it goes to onActivity result. The request code again will be that one. The result code will be the one that you typed there. Result OK. And then the data that was passed through will be that intent, the second argument. But if the guy clicked on cancel, btn cancel, it will set the result to result cancelled and have no intent passed through, which means that if we go back here, the request code will still be 1. The result code will now not be result OK, it will now be result cancelled, and the data that was passed through, that intent, will be null. Okay, so let's do something in this method. I'm going to remove the call to the superclass. We don't need that call to the superclass. And what we need to do now is to remember we are in the main activity, and in the main activity we want to get whatever was typed in the previous activity to be displayed here. So what we will do is to first, did we make a connection to that one? Not yet. So let's just make a connection to that text view. So we're going to say text view. What did we call it? That one is called TV results. So I'm going to say text view, Alt Enter for your import, TV results, and then just set it up. So it's going to be TV results equals text view. Find the view by its ID, and that ID is TV results. Okay, so now we made a connection to this text view encoding. So we've got the connection, just a semicolon there. We've got the connection, and now we can start setting the data to it. So what we need to do now is to go and test. If the result code equals result OK, and at the same time let's just get the and there, and at the same time the request code, this request code is the one there. So just to make sure that it's that specific one that came back, it's that activity that we launched and came back to this onActivity result. So we can test if the result code is OK and the request code is 1, then we can do something. We can actually go and set it to that text view. Okay, so what do we want to set now? Remember that here we created an intent. We set the result to OK and we passed through the intent. Now the intent that activated, or the intent that was passed through an onActivity result, will be this data there. Okay, so we can go and say TV results dot set the text on that one, and it's going to be that data intent that was passed through dot, and now we can go and call get string extra again, and the name of the data that was passed through was called first name. So make sure you gave it exact same spelling. So I'm just going to copy it there to make double sure, and then pasting it this side. So now we set the TV results, which is this one, to that data that was passed through the intent dot get string extra to get the first name. Remember this side we said put extra. When we retrieve it, we call get string extra. Okay, so then we set the results from the previous activity, and now we can go and test again. If this result code was not OK, but it was cancelled, so it's result cancelled, then we can also go and set the text on TV results dot set text, and we can go and set it as cancelled. Just one L. Okay, cancelled. Right, so now basically what happens, just to quickly recap again what happened here. We created a new activity called return results. Okay, in the return results, the guy enters name, clicks on submit, or he can click on cancel. So in the main activity, we create an intent that will be able to launch that new activity. But when we launch the new activity, we call start activity for result, passing in this intent, which will actually activate that intent. but now it's start activity for result, which means if we come back from that activity, it's going to come into on activity result. So now it launches this activity return results. There's two buttons, a submit and a cancel button. If the guy types something and then clicks on submit, we get the name, we create a new intent, and using the put extra method, I'm adding data to the intent. The data is called first name, and the data itself is the name that the guy typed. And then because I said set activity for result, we must set the result on that side. So we set the result to OK, and then we pass in the intent with the data. And then we call finish. So what will happen when it goes back, when it finishes, we will end up at the main activity again in the on activity result. The request code will be the request code that you set there as the result. Sorry, the request code will be the one there. Okay, the result code will be the one that you set there, the result, okay, or result cancelled. The intent that was passed through will be this intent there. So what do we do here? We're just testing if the result code is okay and the request code is this one. We knew it come from this specific activity. Okay, so if the request code is 1 and the result code is okay, we set the text by using data, and data is now referring to this intent that we created there. Dot get string extra indicating the name of the data, which is called first name there, and it's going to retrieve the name. And that will be put to the text view. And then if the guy clicks on the back button on the phone in this activity, so if he gets to this activity and he decides, no, I don't want to do anything, he clicks on the back button or clicks on the cancel button. So we coded the cancel button to set the result as cancelled, but if you click the back button on the phone, it will automatically also set the result to cancelled. So then if the result is cancelled, we also finish, it goes back, and we test if the result code is cancelled, we just set the text as cancelled. Okay, so I think that's the whole application, or part 2. Let's see how it runs. Okay, so this is the application. At the bottom you can see get data. If you click on it, we can now enter a name there. So I'm just going to enter Johan. If I click on submit, you can see that data has been sent through as Johan at the bottom. If I click on get data again and I click on cancel, you can see it's going to show cancelled. If I go again and I enter another name, let's say Peter, and click on submit, you will see Peter as well. But if I click on the back button for the phone, you can see that it also shows cancelled.